Here's a video of Kent Hovind giving a well-rehearsed spiel about how awesome God is.
In this video, scientist and professor Reynold J. Schlepper challenges Christian apologist Kevin Hovind with this question.
Kevin Hovind?
Convinced he has him cornered, but instantly regrets it. Kevin's answer is absolutely brilliant.
Where did this guy get the idea that Kent Hovind's name is Kevin?
I am confused. Being philosophically consistent and being a very honest person, I'm sure you can tell me where God came from.
Apologists love to insist that the very existence of the universe is proof that it had some origin, some creator. When you ask what God's origin or creator was, apologists retort by saying, "Aha, you fool, you failed to anticipate my ingenious plan to commit a special pleading fallacy." Also, it says right in the chyron that the guy's name is Reinhold Schleter. Where did the narrator of this video get the idea that his name is Reynold J. Schlepper?
And in addition, once you've told me where God comes from, please try to clarify how you can figure that a spiritual force can have an impact on a material universe to create it. I think that some years ago we already talked about that kind of thing in philosophical circles at any rate, by posing the question, if angels are made of spiritual matter, and a pen is made of material matter, and spiritual matter displaces no space, how many angels can dance on the tip of a pen?
I've never heard it phrased that way before, but what this guy's talking about is the interaction problem. How is it, if our brains are controlled by immaterial souls, that those souls exert any force upon our material brains? If my soul can control my material brain, why can't it control any other matter? Why can't my soul give me telekinetic powers such that I can lift objects just with my soul instead of having to use my arms? In fact, if my soul can control the nerve cells in my brain, why can't it control the nerve cells in my legs if my spinal cord is severed from my brain? Why can't my soul control other people's brains?
I have a sense of sort of reversal experience here, but please do, go ahead.
You got 5 minutes. Now, I just want to know which question.
That's all right. You may take the rest of the minute.
We're supposed to do one question at a time. Which one would you like? That was part of the format for the debate. So which question?
I want you to fill in the story of the rest of the beginning of the universe. God, spiritual matter, impact on material matter.
Okay, so 2 questions. All right.
Go ahead.
All right, your question, where did God come from, assumes that you're thinking of the wrong, obviously it displays that you're thinking of the wrong God.
No, it assumes that you would be consistent and not use a special pleading argument. Creationists love to use the line that creation requires a creator, and then they assume everything is a creation except for God. If God can exist without a creator, why can't the universe? William Lane Craig would say that the universe needs a creator because it hasn't been around for an infinite amount of time. However, God hasn't been around for an infinite amount of time either, because there hasn't been an infinite amount of time.
Because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or matter.
If he weren't affected by time, then he wouldn't change. But he does change. He changes his mind sometimes, like when he wants to destroy the Israelites, but Moses talks him out of it. Or when he planned to destroy the city of Nineveh, but they repented and he decides not to. He changes from an immaterial being to a material being in the form of Jesus, and changes back into an immaterial being again. If God isn't affected by matter, then how did Romans, who are made of matter, using nails which are made of matter, manage to kill Jesus, who supposedly is God?
If he's affected by time, space, or matter, he's not God.
Then Jesus can't be God because he was killed by matter.
Time, space, and matter is what we call a continuum. All of them have to come into existence at the same instant.
Well, time can't come into existence at all. Something can't come into existence at a time when it already exists, and there was never a time in the 13.7 billion years that time has existed that time did not already exist. And it would be a contradiction to say that time came into existence before time, because before time is a contradiction.
Because if there were matter but no space, where would you put it?
Where would you put God with no space? If God can exist without existing anywhere, whatever that means, then why can't matter?
If there were matter and space but no time, when would you put it?
When would you put God? If God had not created time and space, then God would exist nowhere and never. In other words, he wouldn't exist. God's existence is therefore just as contingent upon time and space as matter's existence.
You cannot have time, space, or matter independently. They have to come into existence simultaneously.
As I explained before, they can't come into existence at all. Something can't come into existence at a time when it already exists, and there was never a time when time and space did not already exist.
The Bible answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven, there's space, and the earth. There's matter. So you have time, space, matter created, a trinity of trinities there. Just, time is past, present, future. Space has length, width, height. Matter has solid, liquid, gas. You have a trinity of trinities created instantaneously, and the God who created them has to be outside of them.
Since outside is a spatial orientation, it's as much of a contradiction to say that God is outside of space as it is to say that he is before time. It's like saying that something is north of the North Pole, and if God can exist outside of time and space, why can't matter?
If he's limited by time, he's not God. The guy who created this computer is not in the computer. He's not running around in there changing the numbers on the screen, okay? The God who created this universe is outside of the universe. He's above it, beyond it, in it, through it. He's unaffected by it.
It's a contradiction to say that anything is above or beyond space. You can't have a spatial orientation independent of space itself. That's a contradiction.
So the concept that a spiritual force cannot have any effect on a material body, well then I guess you'd have to explain to me things like emotions and love and hatred and envy and jealousy and rationality.
None of those are spiritual forces. Those are all entirely material neurological processes.
I mean, if your brain is just a random collection of chemicals that formed by chance over billions of years, how on earth can you trust your own reasoning processes and the thoughts that you think?
The brain is not just a random collection of chemicals. It's a deterministically evolved system of chemicals filtered by natural selection in such a way as to produce a cognitive system that is capable of helping us navigate the world well enough to allow us to survive and reproduce. It's not infallible, but even if there is a God, it's clear that he didn't make us to be infallible. So there's a limit to how much we can trust our own perceptions and conclusions regardless of whether there's a God or not. And why would a soul be able to understand the physical universe better than a physical brain would? Why would a soul which is not subject to the laws of physics be better equipped to discern what those laws are than a brain which is subject to those laws?
Okay, so your question, where did God come from, is assuming a limited God. And that's your problem. The God that I worship is not limited by time, space, or matter.
Or logical coherence, apparently. And the origin question only assumes that you would be consistent. If God is not limited to time or space, then why is matter? If God can exist outside of space, whatever that means, then why can't matter? Kent asked, if matter existed without space, where would you put it? As though that question can't equally be applied to God.
If I could fit the infinite God in my 3-pound brain, he would not be worth worshiping, that's for certain.
This sounds an awful lot like an admission that Kent himself doesn't understand the entity he's insisting we should all believe exists. If my brain can't understand God, how can it understand what it means to say that such a God exists? How am I to believe the statement God exists if my 3-pound brain is incapable of discerning what that even means?
So that's the God that I worship. Thank you.
That's a lot of applause for a lot of self-contradictory nonsense. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.